Welcome.
That is what an out-of-towner would do. Is a great idea.
Welcome and welcome back.
Nobody even knows what he's laughing about, but it's provocative.
Welcome back from your weekend. Hopefully you had a great holiday weekend with your family and friends, enjoying the warm weather, man. Maybe a little bit of rain in there mixed in, all of it together. We hope you had a great, healthy, safe Memorial Day weekend, and welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast. I'm laughing with Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I'm Devon Givens. Brianna is producing all of you in the chat. Of course, good to see you all. And yes, we are here as we're getting closer to the month of June and the start of the NBA draft coverage. We inch closer to the draft and then free agency, so more things are going to continue to pop up, like LeBron James. We finally talk about LeBron James in discussion here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. Is it possible? Well, it's possible technically because as we get things started here.
What did Kevin Garnett once say? Well, I'm not going to yell this early, but anything is possible.
Anything is possible, right? So the one thing that we didn't talk about, even when we were prepping, was how his agent went on television and said before he had to that LeBron James is a free agent. So that leaves it open for all of us to discuss the possibility of in any city, but here in particular, the Philadelphia 76ers. And could it be possible? Would it fit? Of course, with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. And what would that look like? We'll get into some other things. The Eastern Conference Finals has come to a close. Boston is going to the finals yet again. And we have the Western Conference Finals tonight, with the Minnesota Timberwolves trying to stay alive and not be swept by the Dallas Mavericks. So before we get to all of that, we have to talk about LeBron James, and that'll lead us to Bronny James again and maybe a few other things. But Kyle, hope you had a great holiday weekend, man. You get to come back and talk about LeBron James now.
I had to have some choose chill moments over the weekend that we'll talk about later this week. Right. But otherwise, I'd say you still get the extra day off and got some decent weather over the weekend.
Teasing your choose chill moments?
I'm just saying,
future shows?
There was some choosing chill, or maybe not choosing chill, that was done. So, do we want to just start with Wendy and what was said this morning? So, for anybody who happened to miss it, Brian Windhorst over at ESPN on Get Up had this to say regarding LeBron, the Lakers, and the Sixers today. Quote, I think when you look at the options, I think the Lakers are still in a very, very strong position. I would be surprised if he's not a Laker. But it is fair to point out that Daryl Morey has been trying to sign LeBron for a decade now, multiple different opportunities. And of the teams that have a chance to win the championship next year, the only team with cap space that could offer LeBron a max contract is the 76ers. Other teams could do sign and trades, but the Lakers wouldn't have to cooperate. Now, here's the part that editorializing. Here's the part I really enjoyed. The Sixers are a threat. I don't think they're a serious threat. But certainly in the NBA, you never rule anything out.
I appreciate you bringing up the first part of that quote where he says that he still expects him to stay with LA. So now when I say it, it's not spoiling the show.
Listen, I'm just providing a direct quote from our
You could have cut out that first part,
authority.
and I had to be the wet blanket, and now I don't have to be because it's already done.
Should I have used an ellipsis and done the ... and just skipped over that? Anyway, so we have talked about LeBron. Certainly in previous shows, we talked about when there was a report about the Sixers trying to trade for LeBron and being basically told to fuck off by Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss. We talked about Bronny James, the prospect of drafting him and all that. We really haven't gotten that deep into, who LeBron is at this point in his career, how he stacks up against the other options. And for me, I think there's one key factor here, and I think we all agree on this, but you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's clearly better than the other free agents that are on the market. Like even at age 39, even with the very real concerns you have, given that kind of money to a player of his age, he is better than Paul George. He is better than Jimmy Butler. He's better than Brandon Ingram if you were to trade for him. He's better than, go down the list. The only guy that you could make a coherent argument for is Mitchell, just because he's young and in his prime and whatever. But the level that LeBron can get to in games that matter, in the moments that matter, the versatility that he provides on offense. The durability has taken a hit, obviously, as he's gotten into his late 30s, and that would be my biggest concern. Like, I wouldn't look at LeBron coming to Philadelphia and say, oh, man, I'm worried about how he's going to fit in or how he might adapt, right? Like, because he's gone through different phases of his career in terms of how he plays and his style of play. He's been basically a point guard. He's been the off-ball guy. He's been a dangerous cutter. He's been a pull-up three-point shooter. He's been a post-up player, a mid-post guy. And that came after, famously, he had no post game, and that was exposed in that finals against Dallas. He does basically everything and anything you could possibly do. He's been to the top of the mountain 4 times. He's been to the NBA Finals, 8 years in a row? And he's been there, 10 times total? Am I misremembering that? 10 times? He's got the experience that you need. He's got the winning background. He's got the all-around resume, stat profile, skills, whatever you want to do. If you could get him, I think that's a pretty easy just sign on the dotted line.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised how much this will be debated. Just like I was a little surprised how much it was debated 5 years ago when I was like, well, do you really want to put up with LeBron and his nonsense? Yeah, at that point, he was the best player in the world. It wasn't even close.
Yep.
Yeah, if you have a chance, you do that. I know it didn't necessarily maybe work out as well as some people thought it would in LA, but they did win. So, more than we've gotten so far.
The only reason people discount that championship is 1, because it's whatever. LeBron, 2, because it's the Lakers and they've won so many. If you recreated that exact scenario and it happened here, Timberwolves or if it happened here, that flag is flying forever.
Yep. So I think people overthink it at times. The age is obviously, like, you could just tell. Someone mentioned in chat, I forget who, but like this, he would get if he stays in LA, he probably has 2 more years where he looks like mid-30s player. If he comes here, he's going to look 40 real quickly. That seems to be our luck.
That's how it works, man.
It's how it happens. Bad things happen in Philadelphia. So that's obviously a little concern. You'd prefer if he was a little more of a high-volume off-ball shooter. Like obviously wants to get to that pull-up more than he does off the catch. His numbers off the catch go up and down every year. 32, 38, seems like it goes back and forth. But he's played with, a version of Tyrese Maxey before. Like Kyle mentioned, he's played virtually every role in any offense next to any pairing you could hope for. He's smart enough, one of the smartest players to ever play a game. They will figure it out. To me, he's at, we spoke about this before the show, he's at the top of the list, even at 39. It's wild.
And even oftentimes we'll talk about these players and I'll throw, well, they haven't played with someone like Joel Embiid. He has. While Anthony Davis is not Joel Embiid, we know that he's played with an all-NBA level center, a guy that you have to pay attention to on a low block. And he has shown, of course, that he can play with, as you said, any version of a combination that you ask for, so much so where he's been just criticized a lot of times because he does defer and allow other guys to go ahead and go to work and the way that he does it, passing the ball too many times and things of that nature. But even at this age, as Kyle and Derek have already laid out, he's still that good where it would make that much of a difference in a situation like this here in Philadelphia with them. He's not coming in here. He knows it's going to be Joel Embiid's team. Now, the question of between he and Tyrese Maxey, he's done enough, he's been around enough, and he can still do enough where he and Tyrese Maxey can coexist, where both will still be those all-NBA level players, all-stars, and pick up a ton of wins. And even with the lack of shooting from the outside, he does shoot the basketball. He does it now. And that back-to-the-basket game is there. He can still put
And by the way,
ball
he's coming
down
off his
dip
best three-point shooting season ever.
Right. And he can still
year.
dip his shoulder and drive to the basket and finish in transition and start to break that way, if not finishing in one of the other lanes as he's running with the other guys. So I think this will be a no-brainer if this is not a situation like we saw a few years back that Derek alluded to, where as the real threat thing came from the quote that Kyle read, is this a real threat? Is this more of a threat than it was a few years ago where the meeting was had, but he wasn't in the meeting?
Yeah.
And that's that. So
they got a meeting with LeBron.
Right.
Yeah.
And look, even at that time, I thought it meant something because he is who he is. He doesn't have to sit in front of anybody. His executives were, his representation was, but he took those other meetings where he did not take the Sixers meeting. So that being said, with Daryl Morey going after him and going after any star that he can maybe convince to come to Philadelphia, if this was a real possibility, you certainly have to take a look at this because the guy is still that good. And if we also talk about the draw, the Sixers always sell out at the arena. But if you bring him to town, that is certainly going to be something, again, that maybe gives a little more hope to Sixer fans where this offseason we've already heard so many people say, you know what, I don't even care anymore. It's bringing me down. Yes, he's old, and we've already had people say no, no, no. I think the percentage would be more and more yes, yes, yes if LeBron James is in a Sixers uniform trying to make a run for another title with these guys.
I mean, we're talking about a guy who just made his 20th consecutive All-NBA team.
Insane.
20 in a row.
Yeah.
Now, he was on the third team rather than previously. He was pretty much a lock first-team guy, maybe second in a weird year. But guy averaging 26 a game, 8 assists a game, 7 rebounds a game, over a steal per game, playing 35 minutes a night at age 38 into 39. Like, there's not somebody that you could invent that would be better for this team for the intangible stuff, for the on-court production. Now, I think our lives would be a little more complicated covering a LeBron team because of the circus that comes with him, especially if he's coming here. I would presume that's like, this is the last ride, right? Like that maybe it's maybe Bronny ends up here, and maybe it's just like, hey, look, I'm riding off into the sunset. Whatever happens here happens. There's no, he's not bouncing to another team at age, 42 or whatever it might be.
Can you imagine?
I actually could, given, we saw Tom Brady and how at the end of his career played out and how much LeBron clearly loves the game. But like, look, we're talking about the health side of it. If you're going to bet on someone this deep into their career, this old, it's the guy that allegedly spends, 7 figures on his body, like the maintenance, the off-court stuff, the example that he would set for whatever young guys they have left over, but also Joel and Tyrese. Like, we already hear about Tyrese's work ethic. We've seen Joel go from guy who just picked up a basketball to one of the best players on earth, having a LeBron-type guy around every day, still pushing himself at 39. That just gives you that, little bit of extra motivation if you're one of those guys that's striving to be at the top of the sport. And look, he just would make the team better. I think it's just, it's undeniable. And I get, there will be skeptics. We already have some chiming in saying, well, it's LeBron, right? Some people are in good faith criticizing him. Others are just invested in the him versus Kobe, him versus Michael, but we don't have to give any time to them. Do I think he's leaving LA? No.
Yeah.
To
be clear, when I said I was agreeing with you.
Yes.
No. Yeah.
Do I think he's leaving LA? No. Should he be at the top of the list if he's willing to come? Absolutely.
Yep. And the fact that it's not going to be that long of a contract, that what's the harm in that? I see people saying he plays no defense, doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. He does a lot that still affects a basketball game enough where I don't think this one was. Now, if some injuries happen or didn't happen with some of the other players eligible for all NBA, then maybe he might have missed his very first one. But once again, as Kyle laid out, he made another one. And that wasn't by accident. That's because his numbers were still decent enough, and he impacted the game more than enough, got them to the playoffs once again. That if he's at the top, I agree with the guys. I don't think he's leaving Los Angeles, but if he's available, you most certainly have to do your due diligence and see if you can get that meeting, secure that first, and then try to lock him in that meeting and see if he would be willing to come here to Philadelphia. The other stuff matters too, where we'll get to that a little bit more. You mentioned Maxey. We talked about Embiid, but maybe that stuff does matter, where he sees that pathway with those guys and wants to team up with them.
Yeah. And look, I like having another guy who you can put the ball in his hands and is just an incredible decision maker. It makes everything so much easier, especially when you start talking about his pairing with Maxey. I think that is probably the one that fits more seamlessly. I think having him, when you talk about the deficiencies that we've talked about with Maxey in terms of running the offense, in terms of being creative in his passing, LeBron covers up for that pretty well. So I think it would be great in that regard. in terms of whether or not there's a possibility, look, every team or every player that is a threat to leave, the Sixers are going to be brought up as a threat to sign them, especially when you're talking about a star-level player. Windy saying that, like, you can't talk about someone like LeBron James and say, we think he's going to hit free agency and not bring up the Sixers. It would be almost impossible for the Sixers not to get mentioned in that segment.
Yep.
I do like the way he phrased it because it was like, realistic of, yeah, I still expect him to stay in LA. If he does move, Sixers, like, you guys get all of the betting odds stuff. And it always says, LeBron James' next team, if not the Lakers. The Sixers are going to be at the top of that list. It's just we all prohibitively think that the Lakers are the favorite to bring him back.
Get some tickets for that.
We could get some tickets for that. We could also get some tickets for what might be the most detestable NBA Finals in recent memory. A battle, presumably, between the Sixers' most hated rival and a guy who thinks the earth is flat. But if you're on that side...
I said that a couple shows ago. I said Kyrie Irving has critics across the world, and nobody even responded to it. I was very upset.
You had to see the tweet where they had him on, how they had his poster wrapped around the pole?
Yes.
And then on the background, there was a wall laid out with a globe.
As in the Dallas airport,
of the world. Yeah, that was the Dallas airport?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
So great job by them.
Well, if you're in the Dallas airport sometime soon, whether you're coming in or you're leaving, trying to get to the NBA Finals, our friends at Game Time make getting NBA Finals tickets easier and faster than it's ever been. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets the tip off. I don't know how that's even possible, but that seems pretty incredible to me. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. So unlike Kyrie, you don't have to be asking a lot of questions about the world around you at any given time. Look, last-minute deals, you can save up to 60% off buying for, it could be the NBA Finals, it could be LeBron James' first game as a Sixers player, but it could also be concerts, comedy, theater, and much more. And with their flash deals, you can save with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of your game. The zone deals, you can look in a section and Game Time can choose the seat for you. So you just have the general area, you save a little money in that way. We always talk about the seat views. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, which I think is one of, if not the best feature that Game Time has. You don't want the obstructed view. You don't want to be sitting behind. Maybe there's a season ticket holder who's just a tall or large human being. Maybe there's some photos of that person in their seat.
And I'm short. I don't want it to be obstructed, man. I need to be able to see the view.
You can't have the obstructed view.
Yeah.
And with their lowest price guarantee, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you can find a better offer out there. I think that's pretty great, guys. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
And our show is brought to you by the BetParks app. And with the BetParks app, maybe in the fall, if he's wearing the red, white, and blue of the Philadelphia 76ers, you can bet LeBron James' line for that particular game. Get in the zone with BetParks Sportsbook app, and money is in the moments like tonight. You got a game 4 where Minnesota is trying to stave off elimination. Man, I did not expect to be here when talking about this series when we previewed it at the beginning of the Western Conference Finals. Thought Minnesota would win. Thought it would be very close where it might go 6 or 7. And Minnesota just cannot find a way in the final minutes of the fourth quarter to close out the Dallas Mavericks. That said, they have a chance tonight with the spread right now being Dallas a home favorite at -1.5 at the moment. Can they push this back and extend the series to Minnesota for Game 5? You're going to need some stuff from some people there. I'm calling on you. Karl Anthony Towns. Not averaging a lot in this series right now, currently. If I had to throw it at you guys and say 16.5 over under for Karl Anthony Towns, where would you lean? I would say under. right now.
Feeling like under in this
I would say
series,
under right now, because if push came to shove, I think the coach is going to pull him out and put Naz Reid in the game just because he's simply playing a much better brand of basketball. You could also look at the 3-pointers for Karl Anthony Towns. He was like 0 for 7, 0 for 8.
Do you remember a couple of years ago when there was a GM survey and who would you prefer to build your team around? It was like 2018 and Towns was number 1.
Was he really?
Don't get me
GM
started on
survey.
this subject.
Well, he is the best shooting big of all time. That's what he said after he missed 7 threes. And so if you go over 1.5 for 3-point makes tonight, I would say over on that. But the point is, you need to go to Bet Park Sportsbook app there and get in the game, win big with all-day action with your first $10 bet and earn $125 in sports bonus bets. You play for fun, you love to win, you bet. Download the app and play along with us. Must be 21 or older. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right.
Okay, here we go. If you were starting a franchise today and could cite any player in the NBA, who would it be? Karl Anthony Towns, 29% of the GM votes. Giannis was second with 21. LeBron, 18%. Steph Curry didn't even receive a vote.
That was 2018?
2018, yeah.
Prior to 2018-19 season?
Yeah.
Okay.
They had already won, didn't? Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So.
I'm sorry. Steph was in the also receiving votes, but it was fewer than 11%. So that's fewer than 3 votes?
Yeah.
Wow. 29% Towns.
That's not
Was
looking
he
good
the
for him
leader?
right now.
Was that?
He was in first?
Yeah, he was number 1. Ahead of Giannis, ahead of
That's-
LeBron, ahead of Kawhi.
Based on what at that point?
Two-way ability, man.
So this is part of why people are going to get way ahead of themselves on guys like Chet and Wemby. And Wemby, I think, is one of the few guys that actually has a chance to meet his hype. So many guys have like a good rookie season, and then it's, oh, well, this guy's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. It's like, can everybody just fucking relax? Like the Michael Jordan, Anthony Edwards stuff.
Yeah.
Just let a person have their moment. We can reflect on it later, and we don't have to. It's what creates this cycle where guy's really good early, then he gets hit with expectations, and now it's, well, this guy is a choking loser, fat baby. Like, why does he even bother playing basketball?
You would see it with Iguodala too. Even people do it to their own teams because once those expectations were raised, when you can't meet those unfair expectations, then all of a sudden it becomes disappointing. Well, it's like, no, your expectations were wrong, and because of that, he's had to live off of that the entire time. We do that with young players all the time. I think you're right to bring it up there with Ant because he has been struggling as well. It's just let it happen. Let it happen organically.
Yeah.
You will go through ups and downs. There's so much about learning. At times you will look great. At times you will look bad. That's how the sport works. But I do agree that because we set expectations, and so many people are, a lot of it comes down to social media, but you're so incentivized to be on the extreme end and to be first to an extreme opinion that I think we just throw shit out there. And like I said, because of that, NBA, players or anyone has to live with those unrealistic expectations. It's wild.
And you know who's going to have to live with unrealistic expectations next year? Guy in this city, guy on this team that we're talking about, Mr. Maxey. And so I hope that we've seen it many times in Philadelphia sports specifically, set aside, the rest of the NBA, the rest of North American sports. Once a young player goes from, he's the fun story, his contract hasn't impacted team building, hard worker, this and that. And I think Tyrese has a great chance to meet the expectations being set for him. But there will be certainly a group of people now that are like, well, you can't have that kind of game if you're making $35 million, or I'm blanking on it. It comes with the territory. Sure. So I hope that he is prepared for that because that's coming for him. But on the positive side, I know we wanted to get into part of the reason LeBron would want to come here is Tyrese. And I feel like we've touched on it multiple times on the show already the last month or so about obviously Joel is an appealing guy to play with, even though, frankly, they haven't been able to draw big free agents in recent years. But having that certified ascending number 2 in Tyrese makes it an even more appealing opportunity. And I think LeBron and Tyrese obviously have a personal relationship. They've done summer workouts together. Tyrese is rep by Rich Paul, so certainly they share some circles, although I doubt 23-year-old Tyrese Maxey and 39-year-old LeBron are hanging out off the court all too often. But certainly, I think you can see, one, how it would benefit Tyrese to be around LeBron all the time, but also for LeBron to have a real legitimate ball handler next to him, because frankly, the Lakers have been cycling through guys who just aren't good enough the last few years.
Yep.
And I know people in the chat were pointing out, well, LeBron's only title was the Disney World title. And look, my Lakers fans, friends, I love to razz them for that being the only title in the LeBron. The problem has not been LeBron in the time since. The problem has been they chose Talen Horton-Tucker over Alex Caruso and made a bunch of dumbass decisions at the roster level. So how much of that is LeBron's influence? I can't sit here and tell you. But I do think the ability to play with Tyrese, so it's, talked about it all the time with Harden, to have a genuine ball handler, guy who can run the offense with or without Joel Embiid on the floor, is a massive asset that LeBron would bring back to the team.
Do you remember who they then traded Horton-Tucker for?
Was that
Utah?
the Vanderbilt?
Patrick Beverly.
Oh, no, that was a separate trade. Never mind, yeah. Patrick Beverly?
Whoops.
That was the trade?
Yeah.
Wow.
I did not remember that.
Yeah, that's not good.
I thought it was part of the larger, later trade they made with Utah.
Maybe that was a series of trades that ended up talking to each other. I forget, but yeah.
Because he did end up in Utah. Yeah, so, yeah. But no, to have him, you're absolutely right, to have him with Tyrese Maxey, the relationship that they do have. Of course, it's the clutch piece of it. But we've seen where even when he's done something, the 50 points that he's dropped, making the All-Star team, congratulating him the way that he does on social media, he seems like he respects Tyrese Maxey as a young player in this league. And, of course, what his skill set is and what he can do out there on the basketball floor. And those two guys together, you kind of get a sense of it. I'm not saying that he's Kyrie Irving. I'm just simply talking about playing with a smaller guard and trusting that smaller guard the way that he did with Irving. The same thing, I believe it will be there with Tyrese Maxey, because even though LeBron hasn't been here, he has seen it from afar and knows what that guy can do. We've all seen what that guy can do. So having LeBron James with him as that other ball handler, you put another ball handler out there on the floor with them two to go along with Joel Embiid and whoever that fifth starter is, then that's just three different ways that they can really, at least from the perimeter, go after whoever they're trying to go after the opponent that particular night. Not to mention what Joel Embiid does from not only the inside, but also on the outside, where he has those matchup problems for his defender the same way. So all of that stuff is the reason why we talk about it. I was having a conversation here with our buddy Lou. We appreciate Lou checking in for the first time and just saying how certain things, doesn't look all that great. And he disagreed. He doesn't want LeBron James here, but that's the great part about the conversation with every player that we continue to bring up. There's always going to be a skeptic about it as we lay out the positives, as we lay out the negatives, and we'll all be invested. If he was here,
really
just like
everyone
anybody.
just saying, no,
yeah, right.
in the chat
we'll
every
be
day.
invested in anybody. So it's going to be, but that also brings the fun to when the season does start, if they are to land player X, in this case LeBron James, because we're not going to have any choice but to talk about him. There are going to be a lot of games won. He's going to make a lot of plays, and we might see different versions of Embiid and Maxey in the case of playing with a different type of player in this. And the only version that we have seen in this way really is with Jimmy Butler, and Tyrese Maxey wasn't here yet to be Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, no, it'd be fascinating to see how Embiid would react. I think he was the one who would probably have to adjust the most.
Sure.
But then again, I think LeBron has such stature and Embiid wants to win so much. I truthfully think that Embiid would take whatever kind of step back would end up necessitating that. And then you have multiple different iterations of that team that you could roll out there depending on matchup. And it would be real interesting to see how they stagger that. But look, not to go all, I'm glad Windy sort of stole this, but like he's staying in LA. Like I really don't, I think at the end of the day, like, for being honest.
I mean, we did it before. Even when we did, I don't remember which one. OG
was,
and at the very
end,
we're like, and he's still not coming here, so it's all good. But we have to talk about it because it's a report The Sixers are going to be in all of these reports.
And he could theoretically be a free agent.
If he's his agent already said on national TV, LeBron James is a free agent. So he slipped up on that, allowing us to talk about it here. So as long as he's a free agent, the Sixers have the money and the room for him. You absolutely have to talk about it.
By the way, I don't even necessarily disagree with what you're saying, Derek, about Joel probably having to make the biggest adjustment. There's part of me, though, that thinks like when LeBron wanted to team up with Anthony Davis in LA, I think some of that was driven by he knew as he went deeper into his 30s, he needed a younger co-star to maybe take the torch from him. And Anthony Davis honestly played pretty well in that series against Denver. Like he's drawing dead in crunch time against Jokic because he just wears him down over the course of a game. But I do think I wonder if LeBron were to come here, which I agree is pretty low odds proposition. Some of that is like, okay, I'm going to lean on Joel and Maxey versus the other way around. And maybe that's naive because LeBron, every team that LeBron has played for has been LeBron and everybody else kind of adjusts around him, and rightfully so because he's been that caliber of player. But I do wonder if he comes here, it's a signal of like, look, I can't be the guy, capital L, capital J, LeBron James that I used to be. And so it's okay if Joel has the offense running through him for these long stretches of the game. I will get mine. I'll be a off-ball cutter, second side attacker. I'll run pick and rolls to death when he's off the floor. Like he will get his numbers and he will add his value. It just might not look the same as it did, 2 years ago.
And with LeBron's passing ability and his willingness to find his big men, he might get some easy looks like he had with the James Harden pick and rolls that they had. And we saw some with Tyrese Maxey, of course, Jimmy Butler, certainly. But LeBron James playing with Anthony Davis, he looks for his teammates and he will find Joel Embiid for some easier buckets than at this stage of his career. We talked about it. Well, you guys talked about it at the start of the season. And when I jumped in December, you want him working less. You don't want him working as hard to get his points on the offensive end, especially if you want that defensive presence on the other end to go along with it. And if LeBron James is able to do that with his passing ability and Maxey just continuing to grow as a combo guard, but more with the ball in his hands as a point guard, that's a bonus to have LeBron James and his passing ability to make things especially easy like if you can say, all right, Joel Embiid.
Yeah, and if you can go, all right, Joel, you've been having, should I call him Joel?
That's okay. People do
we
that
talk
sometimes.
A lot, man. I think I was going to say Joe, and then I went to the full. Anyway, Joel, rather than having a 35% usage, maybe you have like a 29% usage. You take a little bit of that extra energy, put it in on the defensive side of the floor. Rather than playing 38, 40 minutes per game, you play 33, 34 minutes per game. You're a little fresher, yada, yada, yada. I think for everyone's sake, it would be good. It's just for Joel Embiid's sake, like he has never, like LeBron had a 29% usage this past year. Do you remember the last time he had a below 30% usage?
Never.
His rookie season.
I was going to say, if you would have told me never, I would have believed it. 18 straight
years, he was in the 30s. It's going to be an adjustment for Joel a little bit. And I think Joel's adjustment is going to be a little bit tougher. But if they buy in, I think it could work.
Good.
And I also think some of the adjustment is just shooting more threes, which I think we all probably agree that he can do it and should do it.
Do that move that he does.
But his long pump fake.
The bounce and then
it used to kill me.
I don't get
Early in his career, he would make fun of himself for the pump fakes. Like, I can't shoot. Why do people keep falling for it? But they keep fighting for it, so I'm going to do it.
No, what I was thinking
more catch and
is
shoot?
like more catch and shoot, but also he was willing to be a shooter at the start of his career, in part because he knew Ben wouldn't shoot. And so I think if you present him LeBron fucking James and say, hey, to space the floor for this guy, you're going to have to take some threes for one of the three greatest players of all time. I think Joel Embiid, basketball fan, says, you got it.
I'm shooting 32%. Why are they biting on my pump fake?
They keep falling for it. They absolutely do. Well, folks, if you are like us and you get excited about stuff like this, of course, who are they going to add? And in this case, we talk about LeBron James. One of the things that we'll have fun with are those late nights leaving the arena for these guys, and post game when we're all here together. And Derek, what's one of the things that I say when we get ready to walk out the door? Man, I'm hungry.
Yeah, every day.
I'm hungry.
Every day.
Yes, I'm hungry at 11 o'clock at night. And you're like, Devon, you don't need to add any more weight. You're probably right. I get it. But when I want to go home and eat, I don't want to eat any of that fast food, any of that bad food for you. You want to make sure that you're eating pretty healthy, and you want to know that your food is coming from a pretty good place. And you don't want to have to go home and cook. So I present to you our good friends from Butcher Box. Easy to find, high quality meat and seafood that you can trust, humanly raised, no antibiotics or added hormones. It's delivered right to your doorstep. So again, you don't even have to go to the market. You don't have to go searching for it. It's right there for you. So as a result, when you get home, you just, convenience. Free shipping always. Pop it right in the microwave for you. It's already put together of what you like, and the things that you like, you're ordering it so you know it's already in there, where you're not sifting through and taking little parts of the combination of the food in there that's not to your liking. So as a variety of high quality cuts at an amazing value, exclusive member deals when you do in fact sign up. We'll tell you about that in just a bit. And recipe inspiration, guides, tips, and hacks as well. Again, being home late has helped out with the lifestyle that we have with all of these late nights of eating late and not having to worry about laying down on your stomach and making sure all that bad food goes right to your stomach, your gut. You don't like that. Less trips to the grocery store, as mentioned, and the always prepared meat and food overall that's in your freezer. So the price and the savings is perfect for you. It's perfect for your lifestyle, where you don't have to spend as much, especially in the summertime as well, when you're running around as much and I forgot to eat because we were here and we were doing this. Guess what? Just go right to the Butcher Box, and it's no problem at all. Butcher Box is offering our listeners an amazing offer where new users get free meat plus $20 off your first box. No diddy. Join today using our link, butcherbox.com/PHLY, and use code PHLY to receive this exclusive offer today before time runs out. When we leave at night, we're all right. It's time to get some food, man. And that's where we got to go. Butcher Box.
Fucking kill me. I even look at food at midnight and I gain a pound instantly. I don't even have to eat it somehow.
Not with Butcher Box. Not with Butcher Box. You'll be all right.
I'll have to try it.
All right.
Calories aren't real.
That's right.
You know what is real?
What's that?
Our Diehard program, everybody. But look, the articles have been a little slow as we're taking in the start of the offseason. I know Derek's got a lot of stuff in the hopper, a lot of salary cap, trades, flexibility, what to do with this pick, how to do. The team building master over there has a lot of stuff coming, and Diehard articles are not the only thing that you get when you sign up to be a Diehard at allphly.com. You get discounts on events, you get merch, we have shirts, we have hats. Got a few events coming up I want you guys to know about. We have the PHLY Liberty Open, July 13th at Valley Brook Country Club in Blackwood, New Jersey. It's a scramble format, so you can sign up as a single.
Great spot that
foursome,
Jaws has.
no
Great.
diddy, or sponsor a hole.
Again,
no diddy. 18 golf holes with a cart, tournament gifts, tee prizes. There is a Taste of Philly dinner and post-round ceremony at the Pavilion. And here's my favorite part. Unlimited draft beer for 2 hours.
Unlimited.
After the round. Make sure you keep an eye on that in the events tab. Also, our Phillies team is going to be at Gall & Co. in Port Richmond for the Phillies London series versus the Mets on June 8th and 9th. So make sure you check out allphly.com for more info on that. And look, we're going to have a ton of great content coming the rest of the summer. The Eagles guys talking about the offseason. Dust is starting to settle. The OTAs. Seems like James Bradbury is
he's ready.
Missing in action.
He knows it's happening.
He's going to get some inside info on that. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest Sixers news, rumors. You know, Charlie's got you locked on Flyers coverage. Jim Salisbury on the Phillies. Become a diehard today, guys.
And you can get a hat like Derek. I saw somebody pointing out that Derek had the cool golf hat on. You can check that out and get ready. Get your golf hat for the golf tournament.
I really walked myself into the no diddy on the foursome and then immediately said 18 holes.
Again, unlimited. Unlimited.
We do not talk about these things in the PHLY members only Discord. It is all sports, and we keep it clean. And a lot of times, guys, if you
Only on the live show.
if you watch
Like
episodes that have mailbag questions, we tend to take those exclusively from our diehards, and we talk with them quite a bit about the ins and outs of what's going on with the team, and frankly, what's going on with our jobs and our lives. So it's a cool place to be. We'd love to have Morey in there.
By the way, if you missed our episode from Monday on Memorial Day, we dropped our episode talking about our movie character fantasy draft for basketball. And Kyle probably had the best one. I'll give him that one. That's because we were nice and allowing him to have that
picked
first.
a golden retriever with the number 2 overall pick. So, like,
Yeah.
I gave you a layup there.
Right. Yeah.
That being said,
but still,
I got to take
check
the
it out.
layup.
I think the culture on my team is best.
Listen, I have a lot of egos on that team. I agree.
Go check it out, folks. It's fun.
I don't know where I was going to segue with that. So
That's
save
all
me
right. Real
Bob.
fast. Somebody did say Bradbury is so gone. Who said that in there?
I will say, like you were talking about the Phillies.
Brian Knight. Bradbury.
I have
Gone.
no idea how I would cover the baseball because everyone wants to react to every game. And like I heard so many people like, "Oh, is Ranger okay? Are you concerned about Ranger?" He had one bad start in the entire season. It'll be okay. It's a long
The man
season.
has 9 wins. He's all good.
It's like a
162 games.
I'd lose my mind.
I would die. I would die. I would simply pass away. There's no way.
Yeah. All right. So the other part, we talked about Bronny James with this, so we have to bring this up, even though we did a whole episode on him. Some things have happened since. We talked about his combine, where he shot the ball well. We talked about a few things with some of the other, the pro day that they had for Clutch. He also shot the ball really well there. Good stuff from that. So much so that 10 teams were interested, according to Shams, of at least sitting down with him, Derek, and having him go through a workout and talking with him a little bit more.
and of the teams he will show up for. It's
He said
2?
no. 2.
Yeah.
Suns, Lakers.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? And it is reported at least that the Suns are really considering him at 22.
I mean, that seems like they were looking for leverage to try to get the Lakers to use their first round pick. That would be my read on that. I think they probably felt pretty confident that the Lakers might take him in the second round. And they're like, no, we think there's a team that'll go in the first round and trying to apply leverage. But it would be absolutely asinine to use. Look, will I roster Thanasis if it brings Giannis? Yes. Will I waste the draft pick on Bronny if it brings LeBron? Sure. But that being
would
said,
you spend the roster spot on Thanasis knowing that his Achilles is torn?
I don't care.
I'm just because
100%.
that's not theoretical anymore. That's a real thing.
And Sadiq is still a better player.
My point is,
both
if it
torn
actually
Achilles.
gets you the star that you're aiming for, then someone will waste a pick on him. But as we talked about in one of the shows a couple weeks ago, he is nowhere near a first-round talent. He's not a second-round talent, I don't think. You guys asked me how I would scout him if I was still scouting the draft. I said I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
We've brought this before. He is being scouted and talked about in the draft because his dad's pretty good at basketball.
I do want to make one counterpoint to your argument about, the Suns it's a smoke screen and all this. James Jones has been pretty open about the fact that he just basically doesn't care about the draft. I don't know that he's used those exact words, but has alluded to this in discussing it with reporters on the record. I'm not sure if it's a smoke screen or not with that organization specifically.
It just doesn't make sense that they would be the one that you try to use as leverage because, like, they can't sign. Like, people, the internet was like, oh, man, maybe he'll sign a minimum.
Yeah,
LeBron James not signing a minimum. What are you talking about?
No, he's not doing
So
that.
I honestly don't know why
Now, look,
that would
he
be
does
the other
have.
one.
He was on that Heat roster for a long time because of his relationship with Dwayne Wade and LeBron James. They have a relationship. Will that play into it when it comes to drafting his son? I don't know. But it also have to look at what Ishbia of him saying, can you figure out how to get LeBron James here? And if we have to take his son, clearly Matt Ishbia would do anything to get LeBron James into that Phoenix Suns organization. Anything. If he could make it happen.
Well, that's so like it circles back to what we were talking about at the top of the show. LeBron is still good enough that it's not peak prime LeBron where you would flip basically your entire roster to get that guy and then say, we'll figure the rest out later. I don't think it's at that level, But any marginal decision you can make, any little things that you can do to give yourself a better chance, I think you'd be lying to yourself if you say you wouldn't try to do anything you can to get him in there. He's still that good.
He is. No, he really is. Yeah. All right. You want to talk about the other Paul George stuff? That
Sure.
Since you guys had it
that
months ago, and everybody else is really starting to do their reporting on it as well.
I think we could just save that for tomorrow and do a whole.
You want to do that tomorrow? We could do that tomorrow. All right.
I'm pulling up the James Jones stuff on the draft. The Suns in 2022 claimed they only had 7 guys on their entire draft board.
7?
7 guys. And there's a quote from a guy named Zach Amundsen, who at the time was their senior analyst of personnel.
So what happens if like a trade comes up that's outside of their, like they could acquire a second pick?
But this is what when you go into it, I understand that they have a new owner since the time that this was said, but you're talking about a team that gave a public quote, our draft board would be a mockery to most teams. That's because it is a mockery if you only have 7 people on it. So how much would you boost in your 7-player board, Bronny James, if it gave you like a 10% odds boost to sign LeBron? It might be at the top of the board.
Put him number 1, yes.
That's all I'm saying.
Mike says because Matt Ishbia can only count to 7.
Wow. Listen.
If it
have
gets
any
LeBron
strong
James,
Ishbia takes.
if it gets LeBron James and his son, then, there you go. You can count. You can count enough. He counts a lot of that money, which is why he was able to buy the Phoenix Suns and what he did.
What was he? Real estate, right?
Yeah,
He's
real estate.
guy.
That's why he and Dan Gilbert don't get along, because of the real estate.
Right.
Yeah, they can't stand each other. But
I have a question for you.
But real fast, you're absolutely right.
Who are you, assuming Dallas wins, who do you want to see win less?
Boston.
Still Boston?
Yeah, Boston.
Yeah.
Now,
I have no major, what would the ill will towards
it's
Dallas
basically
be?
just like, does anybody
Cowboys.
feel that strongly about Kyrie, or you're allowing Cowboys fans to be happy?
Cowboys fans has nothing to do with it when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks or the Texas Rangers or the Dallas Stars. For me, they're in their own little world, their own bubble of their level of hate. So Boston, in this sense, it's Boston. And yeah, as much as I like Jason Tatum, big fan of Drew Holiday, like Jaylen Brown enough.
Individually, I like a lot of the players.
Yeah,
It's just they wear that
just
fucking
Boston.
green jersey.
Yeah, no matter what the job is, it's still Boston. And so now it's a legacy thing for a lot of people there. Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, and then you go to the other side with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who have been there a number of times, but they cannot get over the hump. So the legacy piece is there for a lot of these guys, but who can I take it the most in terms of I can deal with Dallas.
Yeah.
I can deal with Dallas. And then when we talk about the legacy piece, what does this mean for Kyrie Irving if he gets another title?
I think it means more for Luka.
Well, I'm just looking at it from him having to come back from that image that was there for him over the last couple of seasons. That's a big deal for him to come back. And when we question the way things were there for him, even giving him the 3 years and $150 million and saying that's nuts.
No,
and he comes back and it makes them look right. Yeah, I think it. But the Luka part is huge.
Because I think
more than Tatum.
Because Tatum has already looked at a certain. I don't think him winning is going to change people's perception of him, which is a very good player, at times great player, but who also has an incredible supporting cast that can prop him up when he doesn't play well. Luka does not have that luxury. Like even with Kyrie, it's more of a two aces situation, right? Like sometimes Kyrie has it going and he can close, but Luka doesn't play well. They don't really stand a chance. I think if Dallas wins the title, the immediate response is going to be Luka is the best player in the league.
Oh, we've seen it already.
I think that's essentially what's on the line for him. He's been in those conversations, right? But there's a group of people that have said, he's a stat patter. The style of play doesn't work. Like if he wins, he he pushes aside all the questions people had about him, and then all of a sudden the resume is absolutely undeniable. So that's all it takes, man. It's like a year ago, it was like it's Jokic's league, right? And then you trade for Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, and now they might win a title.
And look pretty good doing it. Now, Minnesota can't close, as we mentioned. You saw it with Indiana, with
It's
Boston.
honestly been wild with both series. Like how close the individual games have been.
Last 2 minutes of both series.
Yeah, I think like 5 of the 7 games have come down to like 3 or 5 or fewer points or something like that.
Yeah.
And yet both teams, almost going sweeps. It's wild.
Now, see, I didn't see much of the Luka stuff where I get that sense of where people, of course, being the number 1 overall player in the world. Yes, I agree with that. But I don't feel like he gets a lot of just say any pushback on the complaining. Yes, that's one thing, the foul baiting and all that. But for me, it just seems like he's generally liked. They say
I'm not saying
they say he's in the top 5.
But there are people who call him like White Harden, basically.
There's some people who really dislike the ball dominance and the no defense.
Yeah, but I don't think he gets it like Harden got it.
No.
But because
it lasted long. Luka's only what, 25?
Right.
Just turned
That's why
25,
I think he still has more room.
So he still has runway if he doesn't. Yeah. But if he wins, then it's like,
is he though?
Man.
Is he? Is he the best player? Because this is the same argument that we were having when Kevin Durant would beat LeBron James. I don't know that there is a definitive. Kevin Durant would beat LeBron James head to head, and people would say Kevin Durant is the best player in the world, and then LeBron people would push back and say, no, he's not. He just beat him twice head to head, and there were arguments that he wasn't. So in this case, Jokic is not playing. He already knocked off Shai Gilgeous. Joel Embiid is not playing. Tatum is there, but to your point, Tatum is, even though he's top 5 in terms of all NBA, he's not on that level. Yeah. So what do you think? Does it make him the best player in the world?
I don't know if it makes. So my stance on it is that we're in a league with more parity at this point. The lesson from the Wolves Nuggets and the Wolves Maverick series is that matchups are more important than maybe they have ever been, because we went from, oh man, they're built to stop Denver, to
right,
oh God, what the hell did they do? And like Naz Reid is close. He has now closed games or played important minutes over guys in crunch time over both of their $40+ million bigs, right? Like Gobert was out of the rotation for a little bit for Naz Reid. Towns was benched for the end of a game for Naz Reid. And so we're talking about a combination that just took down the defending champs, won 3 out of 4 on the road against them. So I don't know that I would say they win the title, Luka's the best player in the league. I think it shows you, and there's some people saying in the chat, which I agree with, how much the little moves matter. Going out at the deadline and saying, look, we have our guy. We took our home run swing on Kyrie. That worked out. Now we got to iterate. Now we got to get more playoff level role guys. And they don't have to be the top of the market guys. They don't have to come necessarily from winning programs. In fact, Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington came from 2 of the most dog shit organizations in the entire league, and immediately stepped in to ready-made roles for them, played well. And they don't even have to worry about the future contracts. Like PJ Washington's still locked up after this year, I'm pretty sure. So
because he signed a 4-year, like $60 million deal or something.
So it is, to me, proof that you have to constantly be pushing for it, which people aren't going to like this. That's kind of Daryl Morey's approach, is to keep taking swings. Other than this season where they did the cap space and the flexibility thing, it's, fuck the draft picks. Push some chips in and go get guys who can help you win now. Because if you have the number 1 guy and the number 2 guy, and I think the Sixers do, figure out the rest and you're going to have a shot.
Yeah. You brought up the parity, though. Like, your role players are going to get shuffled around a lot. And Dallas is an example of how you can do that quickly. They are probably a little bit edge case in how quickly they were able to put that supporting cast around them. But they're also like showing that, like Kyle mentioned, you have to take a couple big swings. Like they took a big swing with Porzingis. It didn't work. They quickly pivoted to Kyrie. A lot of people didn't think it was going to work, myself included. I thought that contract was a little surprising. I thought the trade to get him there in the first place was an interesting pairing. But he has bought in a way that I don't think I saw a couple of years ago. And you have to take some chances. And sometimes when that works out, you can then look maybe smarter than you work, because quite frankly, nobody I think thought that move, probably even Dallas, if you asked them truthfully, would have known that was definitely going to work out. You've got to take some chances. You've got to take some risks. They're showing that, and you're seeing the dividends of that. And that kind of ties into the summer that we've been talking about. None of the options are going to be perfect. There's still going to be holes in the roster after that, but you have to make the right educated guess on the imperfect option in front of you, and Daryl has to get that right.
Philly 007 says Grant Williams has to be punching the air right now. LOL. But that's to you guys' point. They signed him in the offseason. Now, whether that was to keep him long-term or at least see how it worked, because he brought certain intangibles to a team, and at least playing some big minutes for Boston too, and seeing how that will work in Dallas, they figured it out quickly that he wasn't the right fit for them. And then they saw that they can get a bigger guy in that same spot in P.J. Washington, and it has worked out and worked wonders, as somebody said there in the chat, because of where they are right now. We talked about it. Those guys, man, the rebounding, the dunks being set up by both those two guards for both he and Lively for Gafford. And then P.J. Washington in the last two games hitting big corner threes in the final minute of the game to essentially win it for them to close out those close games against Minnesota. I didn't know P.J. Washington was going to have this type of effect, but I thought it was an interesting move at the deadline. Didn't expect it to turn out the way that it did so quickly, though.
And Shahid hitting us with a super chat as we're winding down here. This year has shown that there's no universal way to build a champion.
100%.
Yes. I feel like we've all been preaching that on this show.
I just saw a tweet recently that's like, well, the Mavs are showing that you have to prioritize vertical lob threats. It's like, well, no, when you have Luka and Kyrie, then yes, that's what you prioritize. Each superstar is different. Each team is different. There's no one way, 100%. Sorry to cut you off.
No, cut me off. Well, not anytime, but cut me off when it's appropriate. Obviously, we've been banging this drum. Like, there's no one magic bullet solution for NBA team building. You have to build the best version of your team, and not where you get stuck and where you get in trouble is chasing trends. Like, oh, this year it's the double bigs, and then next year it's the heavy deadline moves. And you have to stay the course. You have to have real vision. You'll get there in the end, or you hope you'll get there in the end. But chasing your tail is not going to produce pretty much anything of value.
No, not at all. So who do you have tonight? Do they extend it, Minnesota, or do Dallas close it out?
Over.
I think it's over, but I think it'll be a gentleman's sweep. Get one win.
I hope
Maybe
so.
I'm just hoping for it.
I just would like to see a good Ant and Towns game.
Yeah.
And like, oh, okay, maybe this will get interesting.
And if they close it out, like what do we go, a week plus?
A week and a half.
I don't need that. Get this W, extend the series, give me something to watch. I'm going for a win.
Yeah, I mean, Edwards is tired. You can see that. He's not coming through the way that I thought he would. Towns can't make a shot. They're taking Rudy off the floor. And as you said earlier, they've had close games where they should have won the game, and they did not because they couldn't close it out. Naz Reid had, 7 threes in that game over the weekend? And they were right there. And Edwards, you can see, he's 22. He may not be ready for this, but he's also tired, so he hasn't done it yet, where he now has to take his lumps and see where it goes from there. So I agree with you. I think they do steal one just to get it back, but
I hope so. I don't want to go a week and a half without basketball games on, with the season already so close to the end.
And can I say this too? Because you brought it up, the Rudy Gobert play where Luka made the game-winning shot over him. So Kendrick Perkins, who I'm not a fan of, he goes on television and says, I guess it was on Get Up on ESPN. He goes on television and says, see, this makes me not like my vote for Defensive Player of the Year with Rudy Gobert because of what is happening right now. First of all, we all know he's a great defender. He's a different defender than the wings and the guards in this league. He's won 4 of them. They're legit. He is that good. He got caught on the guy that he shouldn't have been. It's Luka Doncic. And as I was watching the postgame, they were arguing on TNT, and Kenny Smith's like, he shouldn't have been on him in the first place. That wasn't his fault. While the arguments were from Shaq and Draymond Green and Charles Barkley, all these different things. And I generally don't really agree with a lot of what Kenny Smith says, but he's right. He got caught on the switch. You said it out there before we started. He did a decent job, but it's Luka Doncic.
Right.
He does this. And it was a better shot than it was the better defense. He got the best of them. So with that, and Winona says it was on First Take, thank you. And I'm sick and tired of Kendrick Perkins with his stuff because last year when Joel Embiid won the MVP, after singing his praises all season long, he goes on at the end of the year when the playoffs were done and they were eliminated in that Game 7 against Boston saying, I'm taken back. I shouldn't have voted for Joel Embiid for MVP. It was the regular season. You didn't have a chance to vote for him in the playoffs for the Eastern Conference most valuable player or the Western Conference most valuable player. So you take the regular season award away from him because it's something that didn't happen in the postseason. He makes me sick with that stuff, and that's why I can't stand watching whenever he's on because I just don't get it. I don't understand it. They kept him. I love everybody having a job, and the first time I heard him on a podcast, he was good. Since then, we've seen where people go from this different type of the way they want to analyze games and to go into these takes. And I think his takes are ridiculous. And that's just my personal opinion. I don't know why he's on the draft lottery. I don't know why he's on the draft because he doesn't add anything to anything of the broadcast that comes to it. I understand he played more basketball than I ever have. He won a championship. So what? I've been doing this for a long time. Milking it like the
rest of those 08 Celtics.
I've been doing this for a long time, too. Do you have anyone in mind that you're thinking of, Kyle? Kendrick Perkins.
Does his name rhyme with
you said he doesn't add anything to the broadcast. You know what he adds?
What do you add?
Viewers. That's why he's on there. That's why he does it. It is
I got to question those viewers now.
Least effort way to get the most viewers possible, and he has figured that out.
All right, can we end on a not inflammatory note? I wanted to.
Honestly, I didn't see that. I didn't see that rant coming at all.
Came out of nowhere.
Was out of left field. You're not wrong. I just didn't see it coming.
I'm not choosing chill, Gene. Can't.
I wanted to make sure we acknowledge the passing of Bill Walton over the weekend on the show. Obviously, I think the most interesting thing with him is the different relationship that he had depending on what generation you were from. Like I'd never watched him play, so my understanding of his playing career comes from diving into the history, watching the old stuff. But we'll join the many people who say he's one of the great what ifs in basketball history. Because, like, set aside the Blazers title and the 6-man year.
Was that was knee, right?
No, it was foot. It was a foot problem.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly. I don't know if it was navicular. I feel like it might have been a navicular.
Hold on, I'll look it up.
Anyway, if you set aside, and you shouldn't, the Blazers title and when he was the 6-man of the year in Boston on that 86 team that was really good. Incredible. Maybe, I don't know if he's the greatest college player ever, but he's on the short list, right? Where he won multiple National Player of the Years. They won 88 straight games while he was there, 2 national titles. And I think what you saw in him as a broadcaster, at least for me, having not lived through his career, was probably the same thing that made him such a great player. Is like he just was so passionate and cared about the little things as much as like, oh, this guy's going to go out and cook somebody. Like, oh, he put up 25 in 30 minutes in a college game. It's more like he loved the art of a good screen and like a good entry pass and all the little minute details on top of, basically talking like he's on an acid trip in the middle of a basketball game. So he just felt like such a great ambassador for the sport for basically his entire life. He stood up for causes that a lot of other people did not at the time that he did back in the day. So that's certainly admirable on top of that. So I was very bummed out to hear about him yesterday. So obviously best to his family.
Yeah. I mean, look, never got a chance to meet him. Obviously no direct, impact. For to hear that one come off, it really was one where it's like, that's sad. And it's not sad because it impacts you in any way. It's just sad because he seemed like he enjoyed life more than almost anyone around. And, I earlier on in my career, I spent a lot of time scouting. You would always look forward to a West Coast, like if I was scouting a West Coast prospect, I'm like, I'm getting some Bill Walton
Pac-12 after dark, baby.
And it was like, he just made watching basketball more fun for me. And in the early days of like internet message boards, people would debate him all the time because some people would take things like he would say literally. And he just throws stuff in like shades of Wilt and Russell as like Dallenberg is trying to post up. And like people would be like, what's he talking about? Yeah. No, he's having fun. And he's doing it in a way that like would piss some people off. But if you were paying attention, he just made the game more interesting, more entertaining. He had a real flair. It was legitimately, and obviously I think we all know him more as a broadcaster. But the way he could mix in serious analysis with just lighthearted humor and blend those two, he's truly one of one.
I heard the basketball stories from my dad, some of the older people that you just know around the league and talking about.
And just watching like Dave
and
Pash, like
debate,
just respond to it. Like he had no idea what to do with it.
The debates about the big men and why Bill Walton needs to be at least in the conversation just because of how good he was before the injuries took over and the college basketball stuff. But then you go to the broadcasting side of things that you don't ignore the playing, but of course we only saw the broadcasting. And my introduction, of course, was him and Steve Snapper Jones. And it was fun on NBA on NBC. And the way that those two would go back at each other and argue and bicker and make that broadcast entertaining, that was great. Then you go to the college part, and whenever there was a treat where he was doing an NBA game, it was always fun. Then they would do the crossovers of college broadcasters with the NBA broadcasters, and he always brought that lighthearted, that fun, that wittiness to the broadcast, and it was always really cool to see him doing that. And you're right, when you heard it, because I had no idea that he was sick, it was a shock. It was a shock that came down. I had no idea. So you're absolutely right, and he left a big mark in the basketball community.
To your point, Derek, about the last thing for me on him. To your point about the Sam Dallenberg shades of Bill Russell or whatever. So Dave Pash was on one of the late, I think it was SportsCenter with SVP last night. I had it on after the Celtics-Pacers game in the background. And he was telling a story about how on one broadcast, Bill Walton started telling a story about how he actually was the inspiration for the character Chewbacca in Star Wars. And he said he told this long, elaborate story, like a 5 to 10 minute chunk of the broadcast, saying he was the inspiration for Chewbacca. And the next day, People Magazine, Hollywood Reporter, all these places are putting out stories saying, no, George Lucas said forever ago this was inspired by his dog. And Pash and Walton are just like laughing their ass off seeing these people fact check what was very clearly him just like, having a lark, having a good time. And so like that to me is quintessential Bill Walton, like not taking himself or life too seriously. And I see a lot of people in the chat saying, I would watch those late night Pac-12 games just to listen to him say wild stuff, and 100% in agreement. So if we could all have that level of, free-spiritedness and positivity, I think the world would be a better place.
All right. Well,
shout out to the inspiration for Chewbacca.
There you go.
Bill Walton.
Time for a roll call there on this Tuesday.
Roll call indeed. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us on a first show of the week Tuesday. Don't get many of those. Hello and thank you to public enemy number one, Money Mar, my girl Winona.
What up, Nona?
Jay of the Jungle, Rick Morse, B Driz, Tyler Costello, Lou been super active in the chat today. Thank you, Lou, for stopping through. Michael Buffatti. Michael, I'm holding you to that Porto show. We're coming to Portugal. PHLY Sixers will be hanging out on a balcony, a veranda, somewhere to do it with a nice sunset in the background.
Great food.
I can picture it now. Shout out to Ramid, Dave.
What up, Mid?
Elaine Bruno, X-Man, Valhos. Shout out to Valhos.
What up, Val?
Our guy Al, the 2-minute warning.
What up, Al? Feel
Marty,
better, man.
Bones. Yeah, please feel better. Our friend Al. Hope you're doing all right, buddy. Bootzilla.
Boots.
Joaquin from Cherry Hill, not Joaquin from Paris, France. Who else we got in here? Did I say Shahid? No, I said Ramid.
Yeah,
or Ramid. So shout out to Shahid. Let's see. Who else we got in here? Martian Lynch, the number one trash talker in all of PHLY. Hey, Aaron. Eugene G. Ross.
What up, Gene?
Always coming through. Devon Givens. Who the hell is that guy?
I don't know.
SB Cole, TN, X-Man. Who else? I think I'm running into a lot of similar names at this point.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for coming through today.
So if they draft Bronny and sign LeBron, do they just put James on the back of their jerseys, or is it L. James? How does that work?
I think it's just James. I don't know. We'll see. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button.
James Jr.
Hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time that we go live.
Wasn't it on his USC jersey?
If you hit the thumbs up button, maybe LeBron James will come to Philadelphia for the Lakers game next year when they visit. I can promise you that. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We'll be back at 2:30 again tomorrow, Wednesday. We'll see you then.
Thank you, Bree.
We all silly like the mayor.